All right, guys, welcome back to the channel, man. We got a special guest here tonight. We got our buddy Michael, big Cincinnati Bengals fan. Last year, we went to the Baltimore Ravens Cincinnati Bengals game together. We're trying to make it an annual tradition where we go to the game together, man. And excited to have you on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's definitely a tradition that I want to keep going. And the better our teams are, the better the games are, the better the rivalries. So let's
Yeah,
hope it continues into the next years.
and it certainly looks like these two teams are going to be good for the foreseeable future. When you have good quarterbacks, you have good football teams, and both of these teams have young, good quarterbacks, good head coaches. So it's going to be good, man. I'm excited for the game. We're going to talk all kinds of things tonight. Make sure you guys ask any questions you have. Any questions about the Bengals? Michael is the biggest Bengals fan I know. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. What's the overall kind of feel for the Bengals this year? Like, what's the Who Dey Nation kind of feeling going into the season, the first 4 weeks?
Oh man, the first 2 weeks, it's just like burn the bridges. Everything that Zach Taylor's brought in is just terrible, and we need to change everything. It's just awful, and like Burrow's not the one I've even seen. It's
Yeah,
just like it's crazy how losing, especially losing close games, can like turn a fan base on everyone.
mm-hmm.
But as Burrow said after week two, it's week two. Calm down.
Right.
It's a long season, and they seem to have turned the tide. I wouldn't say they're there yet, but the next two games have definitely looked more what I would expect to see.
Yeah.
But offense is still sluggish, and
Right.
I don't like to see that.
Which is really surprising, man. Because I tell you what, to be honest, going into the season with all the momentum you guys had last year, I mean, going to the AFC Championship, winning it, going to the Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of Bengals fans didn't expect that type of jump from this offense. And what's surprising is you guys brought all those weapons back.
Yep.
That team is still intact. I mean, maybe you lost. Who was your biggest loss in free agency?
I can't even say it's a
Right.
big loss, but we lost Uzama to the Jets and signed Hursts, which you guys are familiar with. And
Right.
honestly, to me, Hurst is a step up from Uzama.
Yeah, and I agree on that for sure. I definitely think Hurst is more explosive.
Oh yeah.
I think he gets it done a little bit better in the run game as well. I think he's a really physical blocker.
Mhm.
We're very familiar with Hurst, and he was a heck of a ball player here. Just fell behind the depth chart whenever All Pro Mark Andrews just went crazy.
Yeah, and
Um,
that just seems to be the story of his career so far. Just behind Mark Andrews, goes to the Falcons,
yep.
falls to Pitts. It's
Yeah.
just like he hasn't been able to find that leverage that he needs to get going. But I think he's on a 1 year deal with us, so I think if
Yeah.
he can get going, I could see him sticking around maybe 2 or 3 more years.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely tight end one in that offense and looks to be an upgrade
Definitely.
over Uzama. So what I was saying, man, is like I thought, with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase all coming back, Joe Mixon, and then I'm thinking they got an improved offensive line. I'm like, man, they went out and got Leo Collins and Kappa. Y'all signed Kappa within like the first 30 seconds of free agency.
As
And
honestly the fastest move I've ever seen in free agency in
yeah,
Bengals history. It's like done.
I'm sitting here
Crazy.
thinking that y'all are about to go crazy, and I'm thinking, man, Joe Burrow could be an early MVP favorite with all these weapons and the confidence going into the season. And then all of a sudden, like I remember watching the Ravens game week one and like looking down on my phone and seeing that Burrow had like 3 or 4 interceptions. I'm like,
Yep.
what the heck is going on here? And it's funny because I texted you. I'm pretty sure I texted you before the game. I was like, what are y'all going to do if you lose to the Steelers? Because it was like, Mitch
Yeah.
Trubisky, and it just seemed like the worst possible outcome happened. So what do you
Yeah,
think?
and
What do you think the Bengals can do to kind of turn this around?
I think the biggest issue they're having right now is a meshing issue. None of their starters played in the preseason, which again for me is a first. I've never seen a
Right.
preseason where there's not been some kind of roster battle going on. So it was cool to see all that, but none of the starters played, so it was like all of a sudden jumping into the season. I don't know if they just wanted to ease them in and prevent injuries, but it's led to a slow start. Burrow had his appendectomy about 2 or 3 weeks before the season.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a joke around Cincinnati if he's ever going to have a real off season, because each of the 3 years he's been there, it's COVID, his knee, now his appendectomy. So it's just like, is he ever going to be able to get out there? Because he wanted to play in the preseason.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's interesting, because it's like most players, they'll tell you that they want to go out there and play, but the coaches kind of have to hold them back. And it's like it's a very fine line to teeter, because, you want to get some preseason reps in to get your starting guys, like, shake that rust off, get a few reps, some chemistry going in, because you can practice against your own team all day. But once you have another guy lined up against you who's fighting for their NFL career, it's different. It just is.
It is. Yeah, it is. And the whole preseason and beginning was a left guard battle. So we had the left guard from last year coming in, had a rookie fighting for that spot. So I feel like that was one of the biggest battles we had this offseason.
Yeah.
But no one was able to mesh completely.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's finally, after a month of playing together, we're starting to see something there.
Right.
But is it there? I'm not willing to say yes yet.
Right. And I don't know about you, but it seems to me like the tackle play has been a little bit below what you guys expected, because I was looking at the two tackles, Jonah Williams and Leo Collins. I'm like, man, that's a pretty good duo to protect Joe Burrow, but it seems like they just really haven't played up to standard. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jonah's he's the only returning lineman from last year, and we picked up his 5th-year deal because he was our first-round pick a couple years ago.
Yep.
And he's been okay. He's not like a superstar by any means, but he's been good. But this year, it's just when he messes up, the issues are very clear.
Yeah.
So you can like have that mess up where nothing happens from it, which is nice when that happens. But his mistakes have been resulting in bad issues, and he's been the leader in giving up sacks so far with 4.
Right.
And Collins is a weird story. Just his whole stint with the Cowboys, and after we signed him, Cowboys fans were like, good luck with him. He doesn't like to practice. He doesn't have that attitude. And so
never want to hear that when you sign a guy.
Yeah, and so he came in, and he's been missing practices and didn't practice for the longest time, and he's been having back issues, and it's like, is he really having back issues, or is he just not wanting to practice?
Gotcha.
Like, those thoughts come in and seep in. But he's been solid in the games with only giving up 1 sack.
Right.
And so he's not terrible, and I like him, but it's been the left side that's been the issue more than the right, or been the tackles themselves.
Right. And I guess it kind of helps that, Kappa's on the right side there to kind of help out with Collins, a very solid veteran. Nice pickup, nice addition for you guys. Yeah. So I guess, do you feel like, there's this notion, right, that, there's a Super Bowl hangover? Do you buy into that at all? Do you think that, your team can have a little bit elevated confidence, thinking, okay, we just freaking won the AFC, we just went to the Super Bowl, and you go into week 1 thinking everything's going to be groovy, and then there's a target on your back? Do you think that kind of plays in at all?
I don't think for the team. I think it's a big narrative for the media to play off of.
Okay.
But I mean, of course, you come off the Super Bowl, people expect you to come back. Like, you haven't lost anyone, so why are you gonna have any issues coming into the next year?
Right.
But no 2 seasons are the same. So going in from last year to this year, it's not the same team that it was, even though it's similar.
Yeah.
So I don't really buy into the Super Bowl hangover as much as the NFL is a tough league.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a Sunday to Sunday, like any game you can lose.
Right, and I think fans forget that sometimes like you look at a team and you're like, you can sometimes just say, man, they're a trash team. We should wax the floor with this team. But the reality is that those players put their pants on the same way as your players do.
Yep.
They have coaches who are fighting for their career, their job, and sometimes, guys get desperate and they'll pull out all the stops, all the trick plays, everything it takes to get their team ready for a win. And sometimes I think that can be an underrated aspect.
Yeah. I also very much believe that weaker teams, let's say, really like to play and upset stronger teams.
Yeah.
So, like, just because a team is not as good record-wise doesn't mean that they can't compete. They're professionals for a reason, and
Right.
they made the team for a reason.
Right. That's true. Appreciate everyone who's in the chat so far. We got a chat from Malachi's World. He said, for this game, I'm going to rely on our D-line. It hasn't been the best against the Bills, but the Bengals O-line is complete garbage. Hope we can make something happen. Well, I wouldn't say that they're complete garbage. They have all the talent there. Like Michael was saying, I think it's more of a meshing issue. But if there's one week as a Ravens fan, you don't want them to figure it out yet, right? It's going to be this week.
That's true.
Where you don't want, Burrow to find that confidence, all right? And that's what, for me, right, as a Ravens fan, we saw last year, right, with Wink Martindale making the comments about, Joe Burrow's not Aaron Rodgers yet, and Jamar Chase isn't Devontae Adams, like basically saying that we don't need to put the same attention on them as we would Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. When you say that to a young player, that's just going to fire them up and put a chip on their shoulder. And they have a tremendous amount of talent, and I think they came out and they built a lot of confidence. And what I'm worried about is that Burrow's going to, had a slow start to the season, hasn't looked like what we've seen from him last year, especially towards the end of the season where he was dotting up defenses and slinging the ball downfield. I think I don't want him to come in thinking, well, I shredded the Ravens last year, just already having that confidence going into the game. So I think for the Ravens, it's going to be really important to come out flustering Joe Burrow, right? I think if you let him, comfortable, settle in and throw a couple completions, and he starts to feel like, all right, yeah, like I can do this. I can sling it just like I did last year for 500 yards or whatever. I think the mental aspect is a big part of the game. And like we said, me and Michael will be there, and I'm excited for this atmosphere. Sunday Night Football is always crazy. Prime time at the bank. They're gonna have the fans are going to be rocking, the music, the smoke, the lights, the fireworks, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited for it, man.
And real quick, Burrow has been atrocious the first two games, and I'm very hard on quarterbacks, and I want to see perfection from them. But it's crazy that if you look at his stats from the first 4 games last year to this year, he had 3 picks in a row in Chicago, which I don't think has ever been done in the NFL.
Yeah.
And this year, if you look at his stats, they're almost identical to what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that he started slow is, but he found his groove, he found his rhythm, and the offensive line, the first 2 weeks, 13 sacks. Right. Last 2 weeks, 3. So I definitely think there's some issues with catching up to the full speed of the NFL, which I'm hoping they've finally figured out and they're ready to come out swinging because they can't start slow.
Right. And I think also that, like, you saw it with the Ravens in 2019, that when they rattled off those 12 games in a row, Lamar won the MVP. They were 14-2. It didn't look the same on offense in 2020. I think whenever defensive coordinators have a year of offseason, especially guys in your division who know they're going to play you, when they have a chance to watch the tape and see what they did for a whole year and see what they like to do with their weapons, right? Even if they have great weapons, they will start to build a tendency and a feel for what the staff likes to do, what the players' strengths and weaknesses are, and a lot of times have a much better game plan on defense. And I think that's definitely a factor as well, is maybe the Bengals had a little bit of a hard time adjusting to some of the defenses that they've been seeing. They've seen that they're gonna see a lot more too high, because when you have Jamar Chase and T Higgins, the reality is you can't leave your corners on an island. I don't care if they're the best corner. I don't care if it's Jalen Ramsey, if it's Marlon Humphrey, if it's, I don't know, you name them, Darius Slay.
Eli Apple.
Yeah. The reality is, Awuzie is a pretty good corner. The reality is the league is, the rules are slated towards the offense, right?
Yep.
It's a corner is reacting to a receiver who's running a route, and the quarterback knows the route and can anticipate the ball. A lot of times the corner is just reacting off of instincts and their own athleticism. So there's definitely an advantage, and you can't let Jamar Chase and T Higgins uncovered. You got to put safeties over them. So kind of getting into the next part, a couple more questions I definitely wanted to ask you. What's been the Bengals' biggest problems? Like, if you were the Ravens going in, or any other team facing the Bengals, if there's one spot you would want to exploit, like, what would that be? Like, what do you think the Bengals' biggest problems are so far?
Well, I think you touched on it. The tackles have just been
right.
It's just been bad, and we got to see Jonah step up. Like, he's a good player.
Yep.
We know he's a good player. He's had 4 good years, so show us.
Right.
But other than that, one of the biggest issues we're having is the run game. Just Mixon has been, he seems like he's behind, which
Right.
also he didn't play the preseason, so that could be a factor to play into it. He's the dreaded age of 26, which for a running back is getting to the end.
Right. It seems like running backs have a shorter and shorter shelf life nowadays.
Yep. Yeah, and that 26 years is it's where they start to kind of go down.
Right.
And so he's only under contract for a couple more years, which we'll see. But
Yeah.
he's just like averaging 2.7 yards a carry. He's got 1 touchdown and averaging 56 yards a game, and it's just that won't get it done.
Right.
So it's just
if
I don't
a team
know what's
can
going
sell
on
out
with
for
him.
the pass, and not respect the run game, it makes it a lot harder for sure.
Oh yeah, because one of the statements Burrow made in this offseason was if they expect to see a lot of too high, and they're like, well, no, because if you stack the box, we'll just go to one of our receivers. But if you don't stack the box, we got one of the best running backs in the league.
Right.
He ain't showing it.
Right.
So they don't have to stack the box. You can drop more players.
Right. Is there kind of a feeling from the Houday fan base that you want to see some more of some other backs?
Not really. Like, we still believe in Mixon, and we still think he is the best back that we have.
Right.
But along with him is that we're not seeing one of our backs that we took in a draft a year ago in Chris Evans. He was a 6th-round pick out of Michigan, tested in elite status. He's gotten 6 snaps this year out of 302.
Right.
And it just seems like they're not using him like they used to. Like last year, they used him out wide. In Detroit, he got a nice touchdown against the Lions. He was a good change of pace back to Mixon, but it's like this year he's just not seeing the field, so it's strange to see that.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like they're trying to get Mixon more involved in the pass game, which is crazy because it feels like Bengals fans have been calling for that, crying for that for years, saying throw the ball to Mixon. You saw how good he was at it in college, and it's like kind of sad that they're waiting till he's on the back half of his career to start doing it.
Yeah, and that's been a thing that we've been asking for the past 2 years since ZT took over, that, hey, Mixon's a great run catcher. Like, give him the ball more, which they are. And I think I saw that he was the 4th most targeted running back this year.
Yeah.
So they are starting to use him more, but it's more of the dump downs and like the screens as opposed to have him running.
Trying to match him up on a linebacker or run a wheel route or something. Yeah. So...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Well, and, kind of going back to that, it kind of reminds me, not saying that it's the same situation, but it kind of reminds me of, do you remember in 2019 when we signed Mark Ingram, and it was his first year going into the offense and had a great year, had over 5 yards a carry, 1,000 rush yards. He looks pretty explosive, like picks up some nice chunk yardage. And I remember in 2020, he didn't have the same pep in his step, didn't have the same explosiveness, and we started to kind of like, beg for some more Gus Edwards, or
Yeah.
that was, when we had rookie J.K. Dobbins starting to slowly take over the role. And it got to the point where I remember Mark Ingram was like a healthy scratch a couple times.
Yep.
And I'm not saying Joe Mixon is at that point yet where you're like, all right, he's just not explosive at all. But it kind of reminds me of the Mark Ingram situation, where sometimes a change of pace and some fresh legs can really kind of revive and boost the run game.
Yeah, which is what they had to do. I'm pretty sure it was against the Dolphins or the Jets. It was the Jets, where they put in Samaje and he finished the game just because Mixon just wasn't doing anything.
Right.
So they needed a different perspective, a different back there.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like sometimes that veteran running backs get frustrated sometimes whenever holes aren't being opened, as opposed, like, they're not running as hungry, if that makes sense. Like, I think sometimes when you get a guy who is like just foaming at the mouth for touches and opportunities, they're going to run for that with that extra urgency. And maybe they hit, the back of their lineman after a yard, but they're still churning their legs, like trying to get every extra thing. And I think sometimes with veteran backs, they can get frustrated because they know what, a nice running, an open running lane should look like, as opposed to, running into the back of your offensive lineman.
Yeah, and Mixon was voted a captain this year on the team, and he's still that guy. And It was great to hear that he called a team meeting with the offensive line and himself, so that they can review the film, they can look over and be like, where's the miscommunication, where's the issues, how can we resolve this? So I like to see that step that he's taking to actively try and fix this. He's not pointing fingers saying there's not a hole. He's just being what a captain should do and looking to address the issues.
Yeah, seems like he's doing the right thing. Definitely, I like Mixon a lot. I think he's a great back. I think he has been a staple in y'all's offense for years. Hannah Snyder, she said, as a football noob, is all that Mixon, or does he need more help pushing from the line? What do you think about that?
I think it's a little both. I think a lot of it comes back to mesh, where it's the new offensive line. He's not trusting them to make the holes that are there, and he tries to do what he thinks is right, even though the play might be dictating to something else, and he's not trusting that that hole will open in time. And then there are times where it is the line's fault, where they're just not making the hole and not getting to that second level. So I hate sounding like a broken record, but it falls back to, I think they're just not cohesion in the team yet.
I think that's such an underrated aspect of football. Is like, and there's like, of course, with the Ravens fan base right now, you've seen we've been so close to putting, to being 4-0, to be honest, right? Had a 35-14 lead against the Dolphins, blew it. Had a 20-3 lead against, the AFC favorites, the Buffalo Bills, and blew it. And it comes down to a few plays, and I think it's so, like, people ask, like, what's going wrong, right? And it could just be like one little thing that's a different thing on each play. It's not like there's just one glaring need. It's like sometimes the players need to execute and mesh, like you're saying. I think meshing and cohesion is just a super underrated aspect of football. I think you could put, you could put a Pro Bowl team together, right? You could put all the best players out in the NFL on the same field, but if they're not meshing and playing together, they can get beat by anybody.
I think a great example of that's the Bucs right now. Like, Brady is God tier, but they're not looking like God tier because there's not familiarity and it's not the same team every week. It's different wide receivers every single week. So
and I think another example of that is the Rams, right? The Super Bowl champs. Had such an explosive offense, and this year it's like you just got embarrassed, to the 49ers, and they're just not looking the same. I think meshing, cohesion is just a huge part of football. So let's get into the injury report.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. You know a lot about the Bengals. What are the kind of the key injuries right now? Is there anyone that you're concerned might miss the game? Anyone Any injury issues for the Bengals? Or are you guys pretty healthy?
We're healthy as a standpoint of who's on the active roster. We've lost probably our biggest D lineman in DJ Reader.
Yep.
He was put on IR, and they think it's a they didn't officially come out and tell us, but it's assumed to be an MCL injury.
Okay.
So he's out about 6 to 8 weeks. He was playing top nose tackle in the league. He was playing at a Pro Bowl level, helping with that D line, but bad time to lose him right before you guys.
Yeah.
Other than him,
for sure.
Yeah, big loss there. And other than him, our other, I would say, kind of big loss was Drew Sample. He's out for the year with a knee injury. He had to get surgery on it, so he's done for the year. He's not crucial to the offense, I would say, but he's a good blocking tight end. So he's not that guy. He's not that Mark Andrews who's going to go out and catch those 20-yard bombs or 30-yard bombs, but he was good for blocks, and he's on IR. Other than that, we just had players come back from IR. We got Taylor Brit, one of our rookie corners that we took this year in the draft.
Right.
And
I was high on him coming out of the draft. I was kind of hoping the Ravens would draft him.
Yeah, I like him. So it was funny. There was a report of him after they activated him from IR. He was the team's. He played the role of Lamar for the defense
for the scout team.
Yep, he played the Lamar. So he threw apparently a 65-yard bomb to Trent Taylor. So I thought that was funny.
Nice.
Maybe he's the emergency quarterback if we need.
Yeah.
But other than him, nobody's really injured. We got T. Higgins on the injury report and Collins just being Collins. So whatever's going on with him, they're giving him a veteran rest day every Wednesday.
Yep.
Whatever. Like
we're seeing that with some of our guys too. Yeah.
Yeah, we just expect to see him on the report every week now. It's just, I guess it is what it is, but he's out Sunday, so that's what matters.
Right.
But Higgins, he had an ankle injury against the Dolphins. He'll be back. He practiced today.
Yeah.
No issue with him. And the other injury that we have is for Devin Asai, who's a tight end that we picked up from the Patriots on waivers.
Yep, I remember that.
Yep, he's going to be replacing Drew Sample as our kind of blocker tight end.
Okay.
He had an ankle injury, but he practiced today as well. So from an active roster, we're very healthy. From a overall roster, it'd be nice to have Reader back, but that's about it.
It's funny you mentioned the thing about Taylor Brit playing the quarterback role and chucking that 60-yard bomb. It's funny because I had Michael over. He came and visited. We went to the football field. We were throwing the football around, and we were laughing and joking around about how like NFL quarterbacks, just the different type of athlete they are, right? It's just how like
make it look easy,
right? They're like floating backwards or like rolling out to the right and just flick it, and it travels 60 yards, 50 yards, like. And we went to the field, and I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna throw 50 yards, and Michael went down in the end zone. I was standing at the 50-yard line, and I think, what did I hit, the 6-yard line? I threw it like 54 or 44 or something, but I almost threw my shoulder out, man. Like everything I had, and I'm not a small guy, you know, 6 foot, 220 pounds, but there's these quarterbacks that are just insane, man. Just chucking it 60 yards. That's pretty impressive from Taylor Brit. That's funny you mentioned that.
Very. Yeah, it's just crazy to see.
Yeah. So getting into the Ravens injury report, man, we're not quite as fortunate as you guys right now, all right? Much better than last year. What's up, Living Legend? Thanks for coming to the chat, man. Appreciate you being here. He said, yo, what's goody, man? Appreciate you being here, man. So with our injury report, obviously a lot better than last year, right? Last year we lost like everyone. But I'm concerned. I'm not going to lie. I'm concerned because I think two of the most crucial players in this matchup are going to be possibly out. And those two dudes are Rashad Bateman, our wide receiver 1, second-year receiver who looks really good. It's been a reliable target for Lamar and has definitely replaced Hollywood as that number 1 receiver. And in fact, I don't know about what you think, but I think Rashad Bateman is a little bit more of a complete receiver than Hollywood. What do you think of Bateman so far?
I agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree that Bateman's definitely your 1, and even with Hollywood, he was I would say year one. But
Yeah,
without Bateman, I the wide receivers there coming into the season, I've always thought have been sus. Like
right. A lot
they're
of
not.
unproven guys.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And then to lose one of them, that's pretty big, especially if it's going to be year one.
Right. That's where it gets concerning. Now,
Mhm.
um, I would say some hope for optimism is that when he did get hurt in his injury, he came back into the game after the foot injury. Didn't quite look like himself,
Mhm.
but at least went back in the game. So that shows you that it's not at least severe. Typically, whenever a
Yeah.
player is able to play through it and get back in the game there. But what we did see is that he was walking out of the stadium in a boot. So you never like to see that. I'm
No.
kind of hoping that maybe it's just like a soreness, a tenderness type of thing where maybe he just got stepped on. You know how sometimes your muscle or something gets bruised real bad and it just hurts, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a
I,
terrible
I, I'm
injury.
seeing I'm seeing a midfoot injury, so I know that can definitely bring pain, but it's not something that unless it's something broken or something like that, like
Right.
he potentially could play through it, but is a 60% Bateman still your number one guy then at that point?
Right. Now, the other injury I'm a little bit concerned about is Justin Houston. All right. Um, he's an older guy. Not a lot of Ravens fans really expected much out of him when he came back. We kind of thought depth piece, kind of
Yep.
rotational guy. But to be honest, the first 4 games of the season was looking really good. Apparently, he reportedly showed up to training camp in the best shape of his life. Um, Looked leaner, more explosive, and was getting after quarterbacks. And I remember
Mhm.
the game we were at last year in Baltimore where, us Ravens fans had our hearts ripped out of our chest. Um, Justin Houston was getting some good pressure on Joe Burrow. Now, I don't think he had any sacks in that game, but I do remember him cleanly beating Jonah Williams and
Mhm.
the right tackle at the time a few times, kind of harassing Joe Burrow. And sometimes, even if you're not, getting a sack, just being back there and being a presence
Yep.
definitely helps. So I'm a little bit concerned. JPP, kind of a desperate signing, in my opinion. Maybe he has something left in the tank. Last year he was injured. He said he was playing with one arm because he had a shoulder injury and had it surgically repaired in the offseason. So maybe he brings you something, a little bit of a power rusher that can kind of push a tackle back a little bit. And to be honest, man, what we need if we want to have a shot at winning this game, in my opinion, is a big game from Adafe Owe. Adafe Owe, we've seen flashes. We've seen the physical tools there. Dude ran a 4.39 at 250 pounds. Is a real speed burner off the edge. But we'll see. Living Legend
Yep.
said Bateman had orthopedic Uggs on, one arm and 3 fingers. That's funny.
Yeah, JPP's faster now. He's lighter.
Yep. Got a couple fingers not to worry about dragging you down. So since we're talking about that, right? Since we're talking about the pass rush and some of that, let's go ahead and get into our key matchups, man.
Yeah.
So what are your key matchups going into this game?
Well, I think the biggest one you touched on is the Ravens' defensive line against our offensive line. Like I said, it seems like they're turning a corner, and we got the rookie in there who his first week went against Steelers dude Hayward,
Yeah,
and man, that's a start. That's a rough start to get
not a
thrown
good guy
into.
to start your career with, that's for sure.
No, but he did pretty well, and so like if you can handle Hayward, I feel like you can get somewhere in this league. So it's
Right,
good to see that the potential's there.
right.
And so I think the interior, which is crazy, but the interior of the line I think is solid and will be fine. But them edges just I just don't know what to think right now. Last 2 weeks ago we had Micah Pearsons, and man, he was just or Micah Parsons, my
Yep,
apologies. He was just dominating, and every time it's just like he's there. He's in the back. He's in
right.
the backfield. There he is again. There was a play where Collins didn't even pick him up, and he went untouched to Burrow, and I'm like,
Right,
this is terrible. So
right. No, and I
I
will
definitely think
say,
the edges.
yeah, and it's a good thing. I mean, I don't think you're going to see many edge rushers to his caliber. The reality is he's one of the better rushers in the league. He's just special type of athlete, some serious speed. Played with Odafe Owe in Penn State there. Hopefully Owe can get to his level. That would be nice. But I'll say one of my matchups, man. Kind of going to what you're talking about. You know what? Let's go with wide receiver corner first. Marlon Humphrey, Jamar Chase. All right. We know
Round three.
What's that?
2. Round 2.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because I think he played Chase in the first game, and then in the second game, I'm pretty sure he had already tore his bicep or whatever. So he didn't get a chance to redeem himself from that performance against Jamar Chase. And I don't know if you saw the Humphrey interview, but I remember him saying that it's funny how the Bengals' weapons have changed so drastically over the last – because he was here, I think, the year after y'all drafted Tyler Boyd. He was drafted in 2017. And he said, yeah, it used to be the game plan was if you stop Tyler Boyd, yes, you can stop you can beat the Bengals. That's it. And then he said the next year it was if we can slow down Tyler Boyd and number 85, Higgins, we can win. And you saw that, right? But then it was –
well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? So you get Jamar Chase. He said, we thought, all right, he's a rookie, some growing pains or whatever. And he said all of a sudden –
especially with that off-season report where Jamar Chase can't catch a thing and bust already preseason after he's not going to be good. He's not going to be good.
Yep. And it's funny, Living Legend said Jamar Chase ate Marlowe lunch that matchup. He did, man. He ate his lunch and he stole his lunch money, man. It was a bad day for Marlon. Now, I think, going into this matchup, Jamar Chase hasn't had quite the season so far that he's had, but I know it's one of those times where it can happen in the blink of an eye, where there goes Jamar Chase for 80 yards down the field. So that's something I don't want the Ravens. All right, one of my keys to this game is you gotta make them earn it. Okay, we've seen so far the Ravens have been very good at turning the ball over. All right, some of the dudes we've added in the secondary with Marcus Williams, obviously Marcus Peters is a ball hawk, and Marlon Humphrey already has 2 picks as well. So our secondary is getting some turnovers. So in my opinion, the more opportunities for error, right? So you want to make that team have a 12-play drive, a 10-play drive, so that way there's more chances for the ball up in the air to get a turnover. If you let Jamar Chase have a 50-yard touchdown, breaks 1 tackle and goes, or gets behind the defense, you're putting yourself, make them earn their drives, right? Put too high. I don't care if they're hitting Tyler Boyd on 5-yard slants the whole game and they're just moving the ball down the field, that's fine. Make them earn it. Just don't let Jamar Chase beat you over to the top. But I think Humphrey, he's playing really well this year. I think he's not going to want to get embarrassed on Sunday Night Football. And I think he's going to come out a little bit, with a chip on his shoulder. Like he got embarrassed last year. And that's what I'm looking at. Obviously, Chase is an all-pro receiver. I said before the season started that he was the best receiver in the league. And I still stand by that, even though he's not quite having the season. He's getting a lot more attention this year. But
a lot more.
For sure. And, they're putting safeties over him. They have a game plan. When a defensive coordinator goes into Cincinnati week, it's, all right, what are we doing to slow down Jamar Chase? We saw last week, right? T. Higgins was the one that had the one-on-one. And he won that one-on-one. So the matchup for me is how many times can we win? How many times can, we just slow him down? He's going to have his catches, but are we going to let Jamar Chase take over the game? That's my opinion. I think if we can slow down Jamar Chase, we have a good chance of winning the game. Because the reality is the Ravens have 2 good corners. With Marlon on Chase and Marcus on T, I think, you can slow them down a little bit. I still think they're going to make their plays. What concerns me is Boyd. We saw Boyd had a big game against us last year. So can Brandon Stevens, our starting nickel corner right now, can he hold up? That remains to be seen, man. That could be the deciding factor in the game for sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, I've been a Bengals fan since 2006. I haven't seen a wide receiver core like this since we had Tio and Ocho and Hushmanzada. It's great to watch and it's just fun.
Right.
But like you said, like you put one on one or you double one, there's another headed dragon, and it's just it's hard to contain that. And even when you double or triple Chase, like the Dolphins did last week and Thursday night, Chase still came around with 80 yards.
Yeah.
So, like, they're still tripling him, and
Right.
he's still producing. Yeah, but when you double and triple Chase, you just fall to Higgins, who's, I would say, a number one wide receiver on a lot of football teams.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, it's just hard to contain that triple-headed dragon attack.
It
and then,
is.
like you said, like, even if you do something with Boyd, we got Hurst, who started to show up and produce in this offense. He had over 50 yards in the last game with a touchdown. So it's good to see like the offense is finally starting to use their weapons.
Right.
But I think unless Mixon decides to show up, it doesn't matter. You can just keep everyone back and
right. That's
just play
true.
too high.
So I think that's a trend that you're starting to see in the NFL is you need like 3 bona fide weapons.
Yep.
Like
Dolphins
you can
are following suit with their Waddle and Hill.
Yep. And that's what I'm scared about with this game, right? Because I'm like, we were talking about Jamar Chase still, having 90 yards, being double teamed. That's kind of like, he's not a wide receiver, but Mark Andrews, he sees a lot of double teams, triple teams, and he'll still find a way to snatch the ball out of a tight window or just moss a guy and finds ways to get open. So that's my concern is you saw that when you had 3 weapons, right, because you had Mark Andrews getting a lot of attention. Rashad Bateman was emerging as a legit target for Lamar. And then out of nowhere, the third-year receiver Devin Duvernay started to show up and make some plays. Like as a legit, like he never really had a chance in the offense. And then you saw that when he had a chance, man, he was balling. And I think Duvernay looked really good. So right now, if Bateman doesn't suit up on Sunday, you're looking at 2 guys that the Bengals can put their attention on. All right?
Yep.
The ball is either going to 89, Andrews, or it's going to Duve, right?
Yep.
If Bateman's not there.
And one of the key matchups I had then was Andrews on Trey Flowers. Flowers we picked up a year and a half ago from Seattle, and he's a interesting corner because he's big, but he's not like fast or anything. But he usually is that corner that you put on tight ends. And last year he played against 3 of the top tight ends in the league with Travis Kelce multiple times, Kittle, and Andrews, and he held them all to under 20 yards, and none of them had a touchdown against Trey Flowers.
It's impressive.
So I see him being the guy on Andrews to help alleviate that pressure. And can Andrews overcome that, or will Flowers start to lean off and not show up as much as he did last year? Is one of the big matchups for me.
Yeah.
If you slow down Andrews, Lamar's. I call Andrews his security blanket.
He is.
And if you take away that security blanket, like that's when you start to get flustered.
Right. Now, you bring up a good point, and we're going to get into that. Remind me if I forget where we were going with that, but I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge some of the chats here. Living Legend said, Boyd, a Raven killer, to be honest. Yeah, he has been, man. Do you guys remember what year was it?
Was it 2018 when he knocked you all out of the playoffs?
Yeah, 27 or 2018.
Fourth and 12.
It was 2017 because 2018 was Lamar's rookie year. He made the playoffs.
You're right.
So 2017, that was the year that the Bills fans made. They sent charity money. They
sent all the fundraisers. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just that's one of those teams that we were not as good as you guys, but we just wanted to play spoiler.
Right.
So
that's funny. Hannah said, I love Hurst. Hurst is pretty solid. And so So check it out. Where were we going with that? We're talking about the Ravens pass game, right? If you can slow down Andrews, you can slow down the. So, two things with that. If I think we have kind of a hidden gem who's really talented, who hasn't really had a big game yet. But what about
Where are you going?
Isaiah Likely? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we can get this guy involved, like if the Bengals are putting all their attention on Andrews, it's not like Likely's a scrub and doesn't have talent. If you throw the ball up to him, there's 9 times out of 10 he's going to come down with it. So if we can get him involved, I'd like to see that. And going back to one of the Bengals injuries, right? DJ Reader.
Mm-hmm.
He's a freaking stud. It just is what it is. He's
big dude.
Big dude.
Stop that thing.
He's not just a run stuffer. He can get after quarterbacks. So this could be, in my opinion, as much as I want to see, I really like the progression that the Ravens pass game was taking this year. I thought Lamar, his accuracy has been a lot better. His outbreaking routes have been on time and accurate. He's put an emphasis on that in the offseason, put on a few pounds of muscle. And I thought his balls had some nice zip. Thought his spirals were looking tighter. So obviously I want to see the progression of the Ravens passing game. But I think this might be one of those games, if Rashad Bateman's out, man, where you run the rock 30 times. Especially if DJ Reader's out, this could be a big Dobbins game. When's the last time that Dobbins played the Bengals? His rookie year, right?
Yeah.
2020. I think this could be a big Dobbins game if we can, with DJ Reader being out. Obviously, you guys still have some good defensive linemen in there with Hill, BJ Hill. How do you feel? How's the Houday Nation feel about the line behind DJ Reader?
I feel like we're still pretty good. We're obviously not nearly as good as it was, and he's a huge piece that's just missing now. But they've stepped up and they've done a good job, and they've held teams under, I think it's under 3 yards a carry, and so we're doing okay. It's just this is definitely the big test, I feel like, because this is our second game without Reader. So I don't really think the Dolphins had a great run game.
Yeah.
I think that this is the test to see how well we can hold the run teams without.
Yeah, this could definitely, and what's crazy is the Ravens' designed run game has been pretty trash, to be honest. But each week it's gotten a little bit better, and part of that is you're not trotting out washed up Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake. Part of it is getting Dobbins back, and then Justice Hill was starting to run the rock really well.
Yeah, it seems like he'll be out though.
Right, he'll probably be out. So, and Gus Edwards came back to practice, but he's probably not going to be there Sunday. So Dobbins could be seeing a lot of carries. Mike Davis could get a couple. We'll see how that goes. The chat, we got Ayush Narayan said, so I hope I didn't butcher your name there, but what about Isaiah Likely? I don't know if you missed it, but we were just talking about how Isaiah Likely could be the difference maker if the Bengals put all their attention on Andrews. Isaiah Likely could have a big game.
He's very, very much a big wide receiver more than a tight end.
Yeah.
He's a big dude, and he can catch.
Right. That's funny you brought that up because I saw a stat that the Ravens, when Isaiah Likely's on the field so far, 89% of the time it's been a pass play. So it's basically saying when he's out there, we're passing the ball. Maybe we need to change that tendency a little bit, but
maybe a little, but also Isaiah, I will say that coming out into the draft, Isaiah Likely was one of the tight ends I was hoping for because we lost Uzama. So I was like, all right, well, this is a good tight end class. Let's get Likely. But man, y'all cleaned up in the fourth with your 6 picks, and it was nutty.
Yeah, picked up Charlie Kohler, who has yet to see the field. Had that sports hernia surgery. He could be cleared to practice pretty soon. And that's crazy because we still have Josh Oliver, Nick Boyle on the active roster, and Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, and then Charlie Kohler. What is that, 5-6 tight ends, man? That's crazy. But we know Greg Roman likes his tight ends in the run game and the pass game. So this could definitely be a big Patrick Ricard and J.K. Dobbins type of game where they just try to pound the rock. And to be honest, I don't care if that's what it takes. If we got to run the rock 40 times with Rashad Bateman out, whatever we can do to try to squeeze out a win, man. So,
Yeah, and I feel like that comes to one of my next matchups that I
yeah.
can't wait to see is the interior pass rush against Linderbaum being a rookie and
Hmm.
everybody making fun of his T-Rex arms. And you
Yeah.
got big BJ Hill coming in, who I
Yep.
know there were a couple of Ravens fans who were hoping y'all would get him. And
Hmm.
us Bengals fans were like, yeah, we'll get Linderbaum in the draft. And then right before I got a text that they all took him like right before us and sniped him.
Yeah. Yeah. We did.
Yeah, so it it looks like he's coming into his own, so it'll be good to see how Linderbaum can handle the strength and pass rush of BJ Hill.
Yeah. I like how you brought that up. How a lot of Ravens fan wanted to bring in B.J. Hill as that free agent, and Bengals fans wanted Tyler Linderbaum. So here we are on opposite ends facing up against each other. That'll be really fun to watch. Um, Going into my next matchup, man, I'm excited to see Justin Matabike versus Volson.
Yep.
Because Matabike, we kind of predicted a breakout year last year. Didn't really happen. He had some flashes. He was solid, but didn't get as much playing time as he has this year. And this year, he's a starter. I think he has several quarterback hits, a couple sacks, and every once in a while during the game, you'll just see Matabike explode into the back, swipe the arms of the guard, or just bully him back into the backfield and just have a really dominant type of play. Apparently, he worked out with Aaron Donald all throughout the offseason. That probably doesn't hurt working with one of the best defensive players of all time. So I'm excited to see Matabike because he's been a real difference maker on the interior of our line versus the rookie. Kind of how you were talking about BJ Hill versus our rookie. I'm excited to see Matabike versus your rookie over there. What do you think about that matchup?
I think the whole left guard story has been crazy this offseason because we took Jackson Carman last year in the second round,
Yeah.
traded down for him, and he was expected to come in, be that guy from Clemson, that solid big guy,
Right.
but he just hasn't filled that spot. And so this year, or so last year, he was replaced with Quentin Spain, and this year he was handed that job on a silver platter. It was his to lose,
Right.
and he lost it
Yeah.
to a fourth round rookie out of North Dakota State. So like
Just a big
he's
disappointment.
yeah, he's just been not there, and he's been a healthy scratch the past 3 weeks. But Volson has shown that he has it, which is
Right.
awesome to see. Like he's been able to handle his own against Hayward. He's been able to handle his own against other interior pass rushers, Quinnen Williams and I forget the other one from the Jets.
Yeah.
He stood his own, and he was able to handle it. He's getting to the second phase of the run game. So I'm not worried about Volson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a rookie still, so he still has a lot to learn.
Right.
But I think he's good. Like he's held his own.
Yeah.
It's more of Jonah that I'm worried about right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You have any other key matchups you want to hit on?
I don't think so. I think that was all of my big ones. I mean,
Okay.
of course, there's Lamar. It's just Lamar.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think this. So this could be the game that we see the return of Ronnie Stanley. He was a full participant the last 2 weeks. They held him out last week, maybe just to be extra safe. So this could be the game, and it's funny because like each week we've been going into it like maybe this isn't the game that you put Stanley back in. Like, do you want his first game back being against Von Miller against the Bills? You know what I'm saying? And then this year, this week, it's not much better with Trey Hendrickson, who's really, to be honest, I think he's one of the most underrated edge rushers in the league.
I agree.
He doesn't get a lot of praise or attention, but he's just dominant. Like he can push tackles back with strength. He can beat you with speed. He can beat you with his hands. I think he's just a really good edge rusher. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch. Hannah said, "My most anticipated matchup is myself and some stadium food." I like that. That'll be a fun matchup to watch for sure. for those of you who don't know, Hannah is Michael's lovely lady.
She's pretty nice.
And we'll actually be. It's funny because we were talking about how we went to the game last year together. We're trying to make it a tradition to go every year. As soon as we found out that it was Sunday Night Football when the schedule came out, we were pretty pumped. But we're also going to be dragging the lovely ladies along with us, and they're there for the people watching and the food and stuff. But hopefully it'll be a good game and something that the ladies enjoy to watch too, man.
Yep. And yeah, I definitely want to hope for a good game, no injuries, but Bengal victory in the end.
Yeah. Obviously not hoping for that. Hoping that we can finally break that that streak of our home loss. Right now, I think we 0-4 in our last four home games. Hopefully, we can break that, man. We'll see. I think this will be a really good game. So, kind of going into the next portion, is there anything if you're looking at how the Ravens can win this game, or what worries you about the Ravens? With this team, what worries you about the Ravens?
Yeah, so I think as Burrow has pointed out in his press conference this week, the Ravens have one of the best secondaries in the league, and I think Kyle Hamilton's coming into his own, and I think he'll eventually replace Chuck Clark. I don't think Clark's been showing much this year, and Hamilton and Williams back there will be a deadly combo, and I think that'll be a better combo than Clark right now.
Yeah.
But so that I definitely think is going to be one of the things that I'm worried about is, are they going to double Chase? And if they do, can someone else step up and fill that role?
Right.
Another one I'm kind of worried about is the y'all's wide receivers against our corners. With Bateman questionable, I don't think there's enough time for Isabella to come in and know the offense. And he definitely worries me. He was a wide receiver I liked.
Yeah.
And when I saw that they was getting released, I was like, man, having him as a fourth would be good.
Unfair.
But yeah, so him going to you guys is kind of a gut shot. And I was like, dang. So I think he will be that guy to spread the field for you guys that Hollywood used to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because some of the Ravens fans were not really thinking that Andy Isabella really moves the needle much. But I think he's got a lot of talent and just kind of fell out of favor there with the Arizona staff. I think the opportunities could be there for him, and he could make a difference on this offense for sure.
Yep.
So let me tell you what worries me about the Bengals. All right. First of all, we kind of already talked about it. Joe Burrow, if he hits that confidence, right? Once a quarterback, you've seen it. Once you've seen it in their eyes, right? Like literally, it sounds like silly, but you see them like lock in, and once they get that confidence where they're not rattled, they're not phased, and they're just slinging the ball with confidence, it's like almost impossible to stop. You've seen, games like that where Brady just locks in, takes over a game. Josh Allen, Mahomes, we've seen it from Lamar, just takes over a game completely. I don't want to see that from Joe Burrow. That's what worries me. If he can have that confidence, right, where he kind of builds on it from last year, thinking, this is the same old Ravens secondary. I'll dot him up. Even with a much improved secondary from injuries and the addition of Marcus Williams and everything, if he has confidence to put the ball in tight windows, he definitely has the receivers to get the job done. That's for sure.
But I'm sure that 525 burns in the Ravens secondary mind as much as it does in the Burrow's mind.
Yeah,
I'm sure more.
I'm sure they have it up in the locker room or something, using that as motivation. Other thing I'm worried about, obviously, y'all's receivers, man, just special, best wide receiver trio in the NFL. Tyler Boyd as your third receiver is almost disgusting to think about, who is honestly has the talent to be a wide receiver one. So what's your you got a score prediction for us for Sunday night?
Yeah, I think, and this is going off that Bateman is not playing. And without Bateman, I think the Bengals have enough firepower and one of the top-ranked, underrated defenses in the league.
Yeah.
Like that's not really something that I've even brought up because
Right.
I mean everyone wants to talk about the offense and scoring and Burrow and the three-headed monster, but they have one of the top-ranked defenses in the league. They've allowed one touchdown in the last or four touchdowns in the last yeah, one touchdown in the last couple of games, and
Yeah.
it's just like the defense is very solid even without DJ Reader, and I
Yeah.
think our corners will be able to hold, especially with Bateman out. I don't think their wide receivers are there to spread the field that
Yeah.
um, Lamar would need, and with like you said, Hendrickson and uh, oh gosh,
Hubbard.
Hubbard on the other side, they are the only two edge rushers on the same team with 17 plus pressures
Yeah.
in the league. So they can get home, they can get pressure,
That's for sure.
they can get home, and I feel like that is just I don't see how that can be overcome without Bateman.
Right.
So my score without Bateman would be 28-17 Bengals.
Okay. Um, I think that's a good point that you make. That how much Bateman can kind of change your opinion on the game, because the reality is if you can't get a wide receiver that can get open quick for Lamar, which Bateman, one of his biggest strengths so far has been his releases, shaking guys at the line and getting open quick and creating instant separation. If you can't do that against some heat, brought by Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, it could be a long day. You could see Lamar running around for his life, which sometimes can be a good thing because he can pop one at any
He makes
time.
plays.
Or you could see one of those situations where he scrambles out to his right, and then all of a sudden you see Mark Andrews buck booty naked down the field, wide open for a 30-yard gain or something. And we've seen that happen, but we don't. Sometimes you just need structure, man. Sometimes you don't want to live and die on that, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the craziest things this year with the Bengals defense is they're getting pressure without blitzing,
Right.
which is something that hasn't happened very often. Like they're one of the least blitz teams, but they have one of the highest pressure rates in the league. So, and I know Lamar's done great to help improve on getting blitzed, but if we don't even have to blitz, I think that's also a huge aspect of the game that can help turn the tide.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because if you can get pressure on Lamar without blitzing, that means you can put more attention on Andrews, and you can stack the box more in the run game as well. And I think the Ravens have the number 3 scoring offense going into the NFL or going into Week 5. And versus the Bengals' number 8 defense. It's a good point you made about the Bengals defense. I think it's an underrated group, but they have a lot of really good talent on that team. I think Hubbard is an underrated guy who hasn't been the flashiest, like sexiest type of pass rusher, but just shows up every game, high effort, and he definitely puts pressure on quarterbacks.
Yeah, yeah.
The Bengals have.
It's hard to point. It's just hard to point at somewhere on the defense that they're lacking. Like if you point at the linebackers, you got Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, two pretty solid linebackers. You point at the corners, you've got Awuzie, Hilton, Apple, who's everyone's favorite guy to pick on.
Yeah.
But Apple's been pretty solid. And to me, like if Bateman plays and he's like 60%, throw Apple on Bateman, throw
Right.
Awuzie on Duvernay. Like that, I would see that being more beneficial because is 60% Bateman better than Duvernay? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point that you make there for sure. Hannah Gold Lion said Ravens take the dub. Hannah said, I hope we go to overtime with a win from a 65-yard field goal by Money Mac. Wouldn't that be something?
Two great kickers. Two great kickers.
Two great kickers. I think, number 1, number 2 kicker in the league right now?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Evan McPherson has been he has some leg power, man. He can definitely drill it. And the accuracy's there too. And
people will look at the stats and see he missed some field goals, and like if you actually look into it, it's he missed them because we had to throw a tight end to be our emergency snapper because our long snapper tore his pec.
Yeah.
So it's like that put us in a terrible situation.
Right.
But
that really wasn't his fault. I saw that on one of those kicks he had to kick the laces, which
Yep.
kickers absolutely hate. I mean, that just completely screws you up.
Yeah, it just made me laugh that tight end's our emergency long snapper.
Yeah. So Bengals have the number 13 scoring offense, which is pretty good, upper half of the league right now. And you see that
Especially after the start they had with
right,
Pittsburgh and 5 turnovers and
right.
a very slow start.
Yeah, very slow start, but it looks like they're starting to pick it up a little bit. Hopefully, this isn't the week that the dam bursts and you have 3 receivers go for 100 receiving yards. That would be a bad day.
I think both of our teams are on that when is the dam gonna burst kind of situation. Like I think you guys are on that where you just something happens that just all of a sudden teams are able to come back and claw their way out of situations they shouldn't be able to.
Right.
But
yeah, it's like with the Ravens last year. Do you remember we had a bunch of games where we would be down, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, and come back and find a way to win. This year it's like the opposite.
Frustrating to watch.
Yeah, this year it's the opposite where we are up big and can't find a way to close the game out. Yeah, it's very frustrating for sure.
That brings me to a question that I've had for you guys, and chat, feel free to insert in. But how do you guys feel about Harbaugh and like his aggressiveness? He's I don't want to say he's cost you games, but there's been situations like even going back to last year where there's been 2 games he's gone for 2-point conversions and it ends up costing you guys the game. And then this year going for that 4th and goal from the 2. Like how does I understand his analytics side of it, but at the same time, like how does that make you guys feel knowing these situations play out? Like I know hindsight's 2020, but like how do these make you feel?
Yeah. So feel free to answer in the chat for sure, but to kind of talk about that a little bit, it's one of those situations where if he gets it, he's a genius. If he doesn't, looks like an idiot, right? And we've seen, a lot of the genius side. A lot of times where he goes for it, gets the game winner, or makes a decision, and we win. But the last couple times, it just hasn't worked. The 2-point conversion, and what's frustrating about it, right, is you want your head coach to trust the players, right? And the players, they appreciate that they're given a chance to win the game, to put it away. Last year, you saw that he was doing it a lot because, to be honest, we were outgunned most of our games because of the injuries. So it's like whenever you're against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and you have a chance to have one play, a 50-50 shot to put the game away with a backup quarterback who you probably shouldn't even been in that game, right? Tyler Huntley and all those injuries. You go for 2 and you say, let's go for the win because Aaron Rodgers is probably going to march up the field if we don't get that, or if we do get this. So, I mean, I like the aggressiveness. I like how he's going for it because I think you'll see, sooner rather than later, he'll start to get some of them. It's, a matter of probability. But also it's like the plays were there to make, man. You saw on the 4th down that we went for it, Devin Duvernay came wide open in the end zone, but Lamar had some pressure in his face and didn't see it until it was too late. Threw it up because it's 4th down. Why not, right? You have to chuck it at that point anyways, because if you don't, it's a turnover. So
do you feel like this is telling the defense though that they don't trust them to be able to stop higher skilled offenses?
Maybe a little bit, but he also said, that he said in his interview that he trusts the defense. However, he thought worst case scenario, you don't get it on. They'll be on the 2, and that puts the offense in a really tough spot. To be honest, a lot of your playbook is closed when you're on the 2, whenever you're backed up to your end zone. But literally the worst possibility out of like 5 scenarios happened, and they got a touchback.
Do you think it would have been wiser for Lamar to like throw it away, or do you appreciate him trying to make that play?
I would say I appreciate him throwing it up because you don't get it like if it gets picked off, you still have a chance to win the game. But however, if he makes that catch, you're more than likely going to win the game. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, and I think, you know, if maybe that was Mark Andrews he was throwing the ball to, the result might have been different. You know, the safety kind of came up and read it, picked it. But I thought Devin Duvernay could have actually came back towards the ball a little bit more on that and made a contested grab. So, I mean, and that's funny you asked that, because that reminds me of when Marlon Humphrey was interviewed about Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense. He said what separates Joe Burrow is he just has a genuine belief that his guy is better than your guy. And the reality is most of the time when you have receivers like that, they are.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. So you want to give him a shot, right? Because you can't score a touchdown or have a beautiful catch on a ball that's not thrown. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to let it rip. And especially on fourth down like that, I say just let it rip, see what happens. So, yeah. My score prediction, man. Oh, I think it's gonna be a little bit closer than we're anticipating. I could also. It's funny because like in my head, I'm like, all right, you have, you know, the number 3 scoring offense, but you're gonna be without Bateman, and I'm like, this offense can put up a lot of points, but I'm also like the Bengals defense is really good, and I'm like, the Bengals offense is really good, but our defense is starting to get better. So I'm starting to think that this could be a little bit more of a low-scoring game. Maybe 24 Baltimore, 21 Cincinnati. I think it'll be a field goal type of game, really close. But the other part of my brain is like I could just see this being a shootout and, you know, put each team putting up 30 points. Let me know your score predictions in the chat. Gold Lion said 24-17 Ravens. I think that's a good one. 34-31 Ravens from Living Leggins. So he thinks it's going to be higher scoring.
The opposite.
Yeah. Hannah said, I'm hoping for a high score like that. Makes it more fun to watch. Yeah, I agree. It's fun to watch teams score touchdowns, especially in the stadium, like when it gets rocking and crazy. But then, you know, sometimes defense is fun to watch too. I don't know. Living Leggins said, and a broke clock is right twice a day. Burrow is so tough. I'm a fan. Love that dude can take so many sacks and act unfazed. He shouldn't have to take them, but I know once and I'd be done.
I think that's one of the things that also concerns me about this is Burrow's significant knee injury. Wore the brace 1 year. He's done.
Yeah.
He took it off this year. He hasn't played with it. And, I mean, kudos to him. I know when Brady tore his knee up, he wore it up until last year. So that's a good 13 years of wearing the brace. But Burrow is like, nah.
Yeah.
So that concerns me a lot. I still hate anytime he makes a QB sneak, anytime he gets out of the pocket. I'm like, please don't die.
Yeah. I need your knee to stay. Can I donate a knee if it goes down again? Like, yeah. I feel you on that. It was it's like I've learned as a Ravens fan, as a Lamar fan, like I used to get nervous whenever Lamar would take off, and I just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? This is football, man. He could have his Alex Smith type of leg injury from the pocket. It could be whatever. And one thing that's cool about Lamar is he's really slimy is like the word I like to use for it, like slippery. Mm-hmm. He doesn't take many big shots and usually is able to kind of wiggle out of a big hit. So definitely I feel you, though, on the nervousness every time Burrow takes off or does a QB sneak or anything. Or if you see him, like, you know, get hit from behind, you know, from the blind side, that's always a killer. Like, it's just painful to watch.
Well, he took a helmet to the knee against the Jets, and he stayed down for a little bit. And I was like, oh no, here we go.
Not again. Hannah said Brady chose football over supermodel wife. Yep, and it's fun. Did you guys see on Twitter? His bio went from family and football to now it just says football. He changed it. He was like, "All right, I'm done with this whole family thing." Yeah.
What a crazy situation.
Yeah, man. So, just to kind of remind everyone in the chat, me and Michael here and our lovely ladies will be at the game on Sunday night. So if any of you guys are going to be at the game, don't be afraid to come say what's up. Love to say hi to you, shake your hand, and say what's up, man. So it'll be a good one. I'm excited. Sunday night football at the bank. Going to be a good game, man, for sure. So, Michael, I appreciate you being on here. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the stream, man. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
It was great.
Awesome, man. We'll definitely have to have you on our next matchup, which will be in Cincinnati next time. And
Yes, sir.
we'll have a lot to talk about for sure.
In Paycor Stadium, not Paul Brown.
Yeah. It's still going to be weird. I'm still getting used to that.
So weird.
Yeah.
Times have changed in Cincy. It's not the same old Bengals.
Nope, it's not. All right, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Make sure you smash the like button if you enjoyed the stream. Helps to get the stream out to more people. Make sure you subscribe. If you're new to the channel, man, we got a lot of great Ravens content, great football content coming your way. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Appreciate everyone